call this meeting to order. Roll call.
McKnight, Myers, Roa,
Here.
Vogel,
Here.
Kinder.
Here. Pledge allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public comment on agenda items.
Yes, I have, Elliot, do you need to speak or you just want to be on the call list for when we get down to the active transportation? Right? Okay.
The second motion, yep.
Ian, Carbone,
Yeah.
if you would like to go ahead and
Yeah.
talk about the.
So I'm just here representing the EAC, city's EAC. We've been coordinating with Peter on the ATP, and he's been updating us on its development. And we just want to provide our support for the document that Peter developed. There is an emphasis on safety and walkability in Meadville. And that's important for the health of the community, but also if it's safe to walk, if it's safe to bike, people are gonna walk and bike, maybe not drive around so much. And so it also touches on some of our environmental goals for the EAC.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ian.
Michael, if you just want to be, in case we need.
Yep.
Okay.
I'm on standby.
Very good. All right, that is all we have for agenda.
Thanks, Darla. Notice of executive session meetings.
None?
Approval of minutes, April 15th, 2025. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
I will second.
Discussion.
Were they, or is it those ones, or the other ones?
May 6th.
Maybe it was May 6th.
This is April 15th. Should be May 6th. Oh, so these are wrong.
To amend the motion?
It's May 6th, yeah.
Just a new motion.
Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the May 6th, 2025 meeting minutes?
So moved.
I will second.
Discussion.
Were these AI?
Yes.
I think it's smart. I think at one point I'm referred to as the speaker, and I thought it was funny. So
I tried to like skim through it.
I was like, wait a second. Anyway, great.
Roa, oops, I'm sorry.
Fine.
Amy.
No.
Were you good? I'm
Roll call. Go ahead. Go ahead. Because she said that, I was reading.
Roa,
Yeah.
Vogel,
Hi.
Kinder.
Aye. Communications?
None.
Managers report.
I think Andy is here on behalf of the MCRC to go over the 5-year plan that's a requirement for the Main Street designation, which Andy can get into a little bit more as he goes through his presentation and trying to
Stop. Keep going, Mary. So council, thank you for the opportunity to join you. And just funny AI story, so the Meadville Independent Business Alliance uses AI to just summarize their meeting minutes. So I had someone after the meeting message me to congratulate me on the marriage of my son. So I don't have any idea what you're talking. So somehow in the AI translation, my son was getting married, and like that's news to me.
That's fun stuff.
So
Actually.
yeah, I so sure hope not. So council, thanks for the opportunity to join you. Andy Walker, Executive Director of the Meadville Community Revitalization Corporation. I want to take the opportunity this evening to share just sort of a general update about MCRC, and then specifically as Marianne referenced the 5-year action plan, and which is necessary for council to review and approve essentially as part of the designation application to become a designated main street by the State Department of Community and Economic Development under what is now the Main Street Matters program. We'll talk a little bit more about that when we get to those slides and then handouts. So just sort of a reminder, really, so we were incorporated legally a year ago. The board formed last June. And just sort of here's the context of which you know in terms of the steering committee process that occurred in late 23 and 24 and various stakeholder interviews that sort of arrived to the formation of MCRC. Board of Directors, I've got that list and I've shared that with you in the past, but that's an appendix to this I can show if you want. But just a reminder, we're sort of operating today with 3 committees: a Real Estate and Business Development Committee chaired by Rob Smith, a Placemaking Committee chaired by Amar Geffen, and then a Communications, Marketing, and Engagement Committee chaired by Ron Maddox. And right now I'm the only staff member. And again, as council will recall, I'm still employed by the college, but 100% contracted to MCRC. MCRC is legally independent 501c3 from the college. And really the payment of my salary and benefits is the primary match to a tier operating grant from the Richard King Mellon Foundation for MCRC. Just putting that all into context for council and the public. This is just sort of showing the yellow area is the focus area. It is essentially what is the central business district, or now, what's it now called, Peter, under the new zoning ordinance? It's not the central business district.
MU3?
Yeah, MU3, thank you, Jim. Pretty darn close to the boundary there of the MU3. We don't consider this a boundary per se in terms of overall MCRC, that's more of a focus area. When it does come to Main Street designation, though, this will be the designated area, proposed designated area of Main Street. And this is just a little bit more of an up close zoomed in. The blue hatched area is actually the city's National Register Historic District. And then the purple line is the outline of Census Tract 1116, which is 80.4% LMI, low to moderate income, just for some additional context. I won't belabor this slide, but essentially, again, these are the 3 committees and the various sort of metrics and key performance indicators that we have been working from over the past year, working to build data, et cetera. But what I want to focus on next is probably this next slide, and specifically the reason for tonight's visit. This is a graphic from the Main Street America, which used to be called the National Main Street Center. This is a graphic of the 4-point approach, and you'll see economic vitality in blue, and its description there: building diverse economic base and catalyzing smart new investment and strong entrepreneurship ecosystem. The design point, where creating an inviting, inclusive atmosphere, focusing on historic character, in people-centered public spaces, promotion down bottom right, defining the market's assets, communicating its unique features through storytelling, by local experiences, etc. And then lastly, organization, sort of the foundation of the organization, building leadership and organizational capacity over time and forging partnerships. So that's essentially a quick overview of the 4-point approach. It's a national model. It's been promoted as a national model for probably 50 years or more. In Meadville's history, if we go back to the mid-'80s, and I look at Jim, sorry Jim, if we go back to the mid-'80s, Meadville when the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania began designating Main Street communities, we were one of the first 3 to 5 communities in the state. We actually had some funding for a Main Street manager for about 3 years. It wasn't sustained, it didn't last. The one, Peg Robinson, I think, Jim, was the Main Street manager that was hired. And then various initiatives continued beyond Peg's employment. There was an image committee, there were various sort of citizen-led engagement downtown efforts since then. Under the passage of last year's budget, so this is really almost the first full fiscal year, the Commonwealth created the new Main Street Matters program and opened the door for communities to be designated again. Designation as a Main Street community has probably 2 primary benefits. One is an elevated priority for certain grant applications submitted to DCED. So elevated priority, in some cases maybe reduced match. I don't know exactly for some of those grants. I'm not certain there. And then the really third benefit, primary benefit, would be funding then for a Main Street manager. So 5 years of funding, sort of declining scale, but to again add capacity to communities that are designated. So MCRC is looking to apply on behalf of Meadville to be designated as a Main Street community for those purposes. So there's the context. I'll share essentially a vision established, and this is sort of 3 areas of vision for place-based community development that the board has developed. Activation of public space and infrastructure. Again, I'm not going to read that to you. Strengthening quality of life, and then building local pride. So that's essentially the vision statement, if you will. Now the mega handout on at your place, this one. I don't have the ability to project this in a way because it's a cumbersome document. So what on this slide is a high-level summary of 3 what we call transformational strategies and 6 goals. I believe Marianne shared a version with you in your council packet. This version is very similar. I've done some formatting cleanup. I've made a few words. Autumn, based on some comments that you provided to me this morning, I've made a few adjustments. But anyhow, so there's a lot of detail here. The structure of this document. So transformational strategies are language used by the Pennsylvania, actually by the National Main Street Center, or the Main Street America. But the Pennsylvania Downtown Center, which is a nonprofit, is designated by the State Department of Community and Economic Development to administer the Main Street and review designation. So they provide a lot of the structure for. So this is a format preferred, essentially promulgated by the Pennsylvania Downtown Center on DCD's behalf. So lays out, and that's where this slide up here is really the 3 transformational strategies, which are kind of high level, and then the document gets down into more specific goals. But strategy 1, amplifying downtown's existing assets, partnering with stakeholders, including obviously local government, city government, and that's inclusive of the Planning Commission, the Beautification Committee, the Shade Tree Commission, the college and the business community to increase citizen participation, engagement, and entrepreneurship. Then there's sort of 2 goals related to that strategy of engaging and supporting local partners that have already, obviously we're aware that we have great partners working on downtown already, from MEBA to NewPick to city committees themselves. So how do we engage and support all those partners for a sustainable community forward vibrancy? And then how do we draw residents through effective branding and events to enhance the vitality and life of our downtown? Strategy 2 then is, they're in the middle, of creating an enduring positive impression of the downtown that showcases Meadville's unique assets. Goal number 3 then associated that with is very much sort of the placemaking, beautification, and design improvements. Number 4 gets to, which you'll talk about further, I think, to some degree, is the active transportation plan, but improving visitor and resident experience with sidewalk, streetscape, and walkability improvements. And so, and then strategy 3 on the left, remediating, is really and this is where I think some community development corporations or even Main Street organizations don't typically dabble into real estate development. But I think in Meadville, as we've discussed prior, that sort of what I call real estate intervention is really going to be an important component. Tim, I look to you, the Erie Downtown Development Corporation, with which you're familiar, is very much active in real estate development, right? To some degree as a developer of last choice, but taking on difficult to develop properties. And that, so a real estate strategy, we believe, has to be part of our work here as well. So that's high level overview of the 5-year plan, Council. So there's the transformational strategies, these goals, and then beneath each goal then are a series of objectives which are numbered as well. I'd be glad to answer questions. We could go through them individually. I'll also, so I'll take your direction here just so as to make the most use of your time. But I said in the exchange with Autumn, she had just shared a few comments from her review, I guess, over the weekend, and while I feel this is, I consider this as like a fluid document, right? That I don't think it's set in stone, right? Things will change over time. Things will elevate in priority as we become opportunistic and certain opportunities come our way. So I feel like this is just really a guiding document, but the designation process, the application process, does require a resolution from council that essentially endorses the vision and the 5-year action plan. Is laid out here. You'll see in the middle of this document the 4 colored blocks, the sort of the committee structure, the 4-point approach. MCRC does have 4 committees. We have an executive committee, which would primarily serve the organization function of that, of the Main Street model. The real estate and business development committee, which would serve the economic vitality function. The Marketing, Communications, and Engagement Committee, which would serve as the promotion committee, and then the Placemaking Committee is our design committee. So that's how it aligns with the 4-point approach. So I'd be glad to answer any questions or engage in any further dialogue here if council has questions.
So on our agenda, can I?
Yeah, keep.
On our agenda is that resolution that you talked about. So that's one thing that you need from the city, is that resolution to endorse, like officially give our backing, right, to MCRC. Can you say more to, like, I know, like, we've had, like, there's been city representation at the stakeholder table throughout, like, designing everything, like, what does the rest, like, what does partnership look like ongoing? Right, I see the kind of individual, like, objectives, right, where the city's plugged in, but, like, can you speak to anything, like, structurally, or, like, how we will?
Yeah, so so from a structural, you're aware that that Rena, as the Director of Community Development, serves as a non-voting member on the board, so she's been plugged in regularly. So I'll use one example though, right? So under the goal where it talks about design and streetscape and placemaking, right? So in this instance, there's an opportunity, right? One of the Main Street Matters programs is a facade improvement grant program, which the city has never taken advantage of. The city's redevelopment authority, of course, has a facade improvement loan program. Maybe they do have a small grant incentive component to that. So Ren and I have been meeting, and she's discussed with the RDA board the opportunity to essentially partner, where MCRC could administer the grant program. Because it requires a dollar-for-dollar match from the property or business owner, they could choose to access the redevelopment authority's loan program to serve as their local match. So that's one practical example. So the true structural way is primarily through Rena's engagement and communication, but I've been meeting regularly with the Shade Tree Commission, right? And because there's obviously a strong interest in reestablishing tree canopy downtown. And so Alice is sort of coordinating sort of planter versus trees, and there's a lot of discussion there she's building, so there's engagement there. MCRC is a recipient of a grant through the Erie Community Foundation, and it's for a pilot program this summer, summer maintenance program, where we're hiring part-time students out of the transitional life skills, either aging out of transitional life skills or engaged in the program. We'll hire up to 3 students who will do just some weeding and mulching and downtown maintenance. And so that's a sort of partnership and communication of just maintaining green space and rights of way in the city. So I think there's already many examples of that sort of communication and collaboration. I don't know if that truly gets to your point, Autumn, but
I think it does. I think I've seen it. I just wanted, thank you for articulating it so that it's clear.
yeah, sure.
Andy, I have a question. I'm looking at both documents.
Oh, sure, I didn't talk about the second document yet, but
Okay.
we can go there. Let me introduce it real quick, Jim. Could I do that before you answer your
Sure.
question? So this second document is one of the other components of the application for designation is a community perception survey, or maybe more they call it an image survey. This document is this is a survey instrument of the Pennsylvania Downtown Center. So these are their survey questions, but this is a survey that we launched in late February as part of the Cookie Walk was its initial launch, and it was open through March and a few weeks in April, and then these are the results here. So thanks, Jim.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking on the last page at the key finding at the very top of the
Yeah.
page. Parking is a major barrier. Does parking appear in this?
So you know what, it doesn't, Jim, actually, as a primary strategy. And the parking's been as, so you're right, it appears as a key finding here. And then in other situations, it appears less as a barrier. But there's not a specific parking strategy. I think where it calls potentially for that, Jim, in the mega spreadsheet would be sort of the section, and I have to find it. Essentially working with the city on policy and practices with respect to economic, that support development goals of downtown. That's a pretty broad statement, but I think parking would be one of those areas where there's policy and practice that impacts downtown.
Thank you.
So what's interesting about this survey document, so the final page, which is really I believe an AI summary, frankly, of the written comments that were provided in the survey. But you'll see there, right, parking is a major barrier, accessibility and snow removal concerns, downtown appeal and business mix, events and activities are loved and wanted more, walkability, safety, and navigation, pedestrian safety is a concern, particularly around poorly marked crosswalks and unsafe crossing areas, suggestions for better signage, repainted or raised crosswalks, visitor maps posted in public places, and better connections to Bicentennial Park and other assets and trails. Community atmosphere and visual identity, families and inclusivity, town gown disconnect, economic and structural challenges are the sort of summary headlines. There were 296 survey respondents. What's also interesting to me is the page just before that is sort of the demographics, where it gives an age, race, annual household income. I was sort of pleased that when you look at the lower left corner, the annual household income had a pretty broad representation of households that participated in the survey. And then how often do you shop in downtown? About nearly half responded a few times a month, so probably a bias here that some of the survey participants were people who are already regular downtown shoppers, but I certainly invite you to review or ask any questions about this. This isn't necessarily part of your approval tonight, but I wanted to share these results with you.
Jim, did you have more questions? Is that okay? I'm looking at this, the survey,
Yeah.
and then it says the mixed, like the mix of businesses and things like that. Do you have people who are looking at, is it part of the strategy, right, to look at the mix and see, and then bring people in, or bolster the entrepreneurial program for people who are looking to bring those types of businesses in? I don't know what we're missing,
So
but.
market analysis, like a formal market
Sure.
analysis is definitely a next priority. So we've completed so also part of the application is a property condition and business inventory. We've completed that, and I do have some slides about the property condition, but an inventory versus what can the market, where's leakage happening, right? So I think there's an inventory of what do we have, what do people want, and what does the data say that says people are actually spending on what's leaking from the market, that might identify where those were opportunities of where people are spending their money elsewhere and what people want. How do you then craft a strategy to find, to grow, to support those entrepreneurs for that purpose?
And then it, probably the executive board or, do you have a strategy for, or are you thinking about a strategy to make it easier for, right, like I know that we just had a class with the chamber, right, for people who want to start a business, and I know we have Gannon, right, coming in, and they've got the beehive, and, all of those things, but like a strategy just so that, start from the beginning, you know what I mean, the very beginning of I know we discussed it, but I'm just, right,
So, and I think what I've said is there are lots of partners, right? But I would say that our entrepreneurial ecosystem is somewhat broken, that it's fragmented, and so I think how we can, I would love for the SBDC to have a physical presence downtown, right, as part of their programming that gives them the visible and physical space at which to meet people. They are good at meeting people where they are and setting up meetings and holding some things, but where we can develop specific strategies and inroads to bring those partners together to make it easier or more transparent for business startups for sure, or even supporting existing businesses is definitely an important strategy.
Okay. I was just wondering, I spoke with them and gave them a couple suggestions as where they could, right, like be.
With the SBDC in particular?
Yeah. And, because there are options, so, I just think that'd be a great strategy, right? Making it easier, and then a strategy on what kind of businesses we need and what keeps them in town opposed to, right over the bridge, you know what I mean? Because that's a tough thing.
Right.
Yeah, there's mention of workforce development programs. Are you looking at a particular industry, like
I think there's,
workforce writ large?
so we've been, MCRC and other stakeholders have been engaged with the Center on Rural Innovation out of Vermont on sort of rural tech economy development. Where are there opportunities to increase skill sets? To some degree, the college's ALEC at Bessemer program is beginning to elevate. Now, it's not necessarily downtown, but are there other programs, maker spaces, or eventually things that could feed in and support the ecosystem of tech economy development? I think when it comes to workforce development, right, the medical center is doing a lot of work with their, growth in their LPN and their registered nursing program. Are there opportunities to engage those downtown? In buildings and spaces, and so I think those are the types of opportunities, certainly medical, as it is happening, and
I was sent a case study for Meadville, PA, and it was for, that someone was doing, I have it in an email, and it was sent to me by another mayor in another town that went to this thing about.
It was the Center for Rural Innovation. I think
Right,
it was
yeah,
the
and so it had us in it, it was very cool, so that's just a cool thing to see, and to see that we are, part of that rural case study on
Center on
tech.
Innovation about 18 months ago did sort of what they call an assessment. That might be the report
I
where
think
we
so,
appearing. And then really just about 3 weeks ago engaged some other stakeholders and we'll be doing a much more focused strategy here in the coming months.
Any other questions?
Just some accomplishments since June. I'll just move on beyond just a more general update, right? So we don't quite have our 501c3 designation. We applied in October, and finally, 7 months later, just actually last Friday, got response that they're reviewing, they have some questions, we have to make some edits to our application, augment our narrative. So that's underway. I think council's aware, secured a small planning grant for upper floor residential housing feasibility analysis on the block of Chestnut Street between Market and Park. That's when the Lieutenant Governor was here to announce and promote that program. Reference that the property condition of business inventory is complete. We've engaged with the college's community impact hub to identify both short and long-term downtown locations as it grows. I talked about the Erie Community Foundation grant. From the marketing communication side, the holiday video that was produced last winter will receive an award here soon, and there'll be an announcement about that that'll bring a little publicity to Meadville as well. So, and I'm glad to share this presentation after the fact. This corridor has been identified by the, in terms of like early, real estate investments. We don't know what these look like, but we know these are the priorities, right? The Trust Building is limited occupancy and has some physical plant issues now. The Citizens Bank Building completely vacant. Heather's building there, Heather's now a developer, but the building next to it has, we know there's lots of possibilities downtown, but we think the sort of in the core is where we can make the most difference and the most visible improvement, which is also why we focus on the upper floor housing in that block of Chestnut Street in the middle. Working on sort of placemaking improvements of the former Meadville Cinema lot in partnership with the Redevelopment Authority. Talked about that commercial. This is the board of directors. I've shared this information. You know where to find us all. This was the property condition survey. So we did most of the bulk field work in mid-December. So about 224 structures and 410 parcels inside that focus area on both sides of the street. About 1.14 million square feet of space. Total assessed value of $28 million from those parcels. And there's a lot of data here too, which we don't need to focus on, but overall conditions of those 224 properties, probably better than, and again, these are subjectos, observations of volunteers, sort of with a checklist, but 38% in good, 26% average, 24% considered in excellent condition overall. There's a breakdown of parcel uses versus commercial, mixed use, institutional versus residential, and occupancy. I can provide this data as well. And then and when we just break down commercial, what are the tenant types between office, retail, restaurant. So again, really trying to establish a strong baseline and inventory to guide our work. And then we look at residential, I think we identified 72 residential building types and then 57 essentially single family or single residential parcels. And you'll see the breakdown there. So anyhow, glad to answer questions. You know where to find me at any time, and I appreciate your time tonight.
Thank you, Andy.
It's always good to see you.
Thank you, Jim. I would suspect that before we can submit the Pennsylvania Downtown Center, we'll do a field visit or review. Might actually want to meet with some members of council. I don't know what that'll look like, so that'll have to happen before we finally submit, but that's not scheduled yet. I would really like to be in a position to be submitting our application by the end of June, because I want to go into the next round of Main Street Matters grant funding applications to say, we've submitted for designation, we're waiting, to give us a leg up as we continue to submit applications for Meadville.
Thank you again, Andy.
Thank you.
All right. Old business?
I do have two more items under,
Manager's report. Okay.
One, just an update on cleanup day, that was this past Saturday. they did receive 170 loads of trash, and various recyclables. This is double what they normally see. And then the last update is, if council recalls, Barb Newcamp came to council a few meetings ago and requested that the city kind of be an example for the Grow Meadville initiative, where folks can pass by a plot and pick tomatoes or various other vegetables. We took heed of that, and in front of the market house, you'll see a 3-foot by 8-foot garden, elevated raised bed, and it's a salad garden. So it has lettuce, cucumbers, onions, tomatoes, some other things that you find in a salad. It was planted today, no croutons. You can go inside the market house and get some sourdough.
There's a crouton tree.
No capping the dressing.
No.
I saw somebody planting it today. Who's responsible for?
Jesse and the market house are going to maintain it. My dad planted it,
Is that
but
your dad out
yeah.
there?
My dad is also a master gardener, so he planted it as my dad, but also a master gardener.
Nice.
So he says he will come by twice a week and water it for everybody too, so.
This gives me even more reason. I don't know, this is a tangent a little bit, but it was raining this week and I was at the market house and there was just like water gushing out of one of the downspouts. And I was like, we should have rain barrels on this side of the market house, especially for like and now I'm thinking especially for the piece in the front. But I had been just thinking about it for the hanging baskets that the friends of the market house do. Wasn't sure if the roof construction impacts any of that, so maybe it's just a thing for later, but let me rerun the gutters. Okay. Anyway, there's a lot of water coming in there, making big puddles. That's great. Thanks for organizing that.
Old business. Ordinance, first and second reading. Do you have any other questions?
Oh, the open house was really nice too.
Oh, yes.
Great work.
Yeah, first and second reading, meter rates. Can I have a motion for the first reading?
Motion.
Second.
Discussion?
So there's been no change since the last time this came before council on April 15th. There is one item that perhaps needs to be clarified or changed, depending on how council feels. So this pertains to meter rates. This changes all meter rates to 25 cents per half hour. In the version in front of you, the meter easy rates remain at 25 cents per hour. If for consistency, council believes that this should be changed to everybody, all forms of payment changed to 25 cents per half hour, we can do that. I had thought that at one point there was some discussion from businesses that they would like to see it, the app remain the same as it is currently, 25 cents per an hour. There is a fee associated with the app, but the hope, I think, was also to encourage folks to use the app a little bit more and move away from the change itself, but can be easily changed, so.
So this version leaves the easy
At 25 cents
at
per hour.
25 cents, okay. I think that's a smart idea.
Yeah.
I think I raised it because I didn't remember that coming up, which doesn't mean it didn't come up. It's just I couldn't find the notes anywhere, and so I couldn't remember who had raised that. Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm trying to understand. Maybe someone can help me. Like, is there a real benefit for people using the app on our end, like that we would want to move traffic?
It's a little bit
Yeah.
easier. Lindy doesn't have to go out and physically collect as much change. She will still be going out to collect change.
And
There have been some instances of folks breaking into the meters. and stealing the change.
Can you do that?
And people can remain, like if they were at a restaurant and they're using the app, they can do it remotely.
Right.
So
Right.
that's a convenience factor for them.
Yeah, no, I use the app all the time. I recognize the benefit to the user for sure. I guess I'm just trying to think about like our motivation to move people to that mode of payment. Cause I think the reason I did question it was cause I was like, part of what I'm appreciating about updating the ordinance is that like, now we've got, it's a pilot here and it's this rate and parking is this rate somewhere else, and I feel like the uniformity is helpful, like the parking rate is consistent in a metered spot, it feels helpful, and I'm just wondering if, I'm truly just posing this like for us to discuss, like does introducing a rate by one mode of payment versus rate by another mode of payment introduce confusion and therefore like disgruntlement, you know what I mean? Like
Right,
people are
yeah.
just already so
Although I
angry.
think we do have 1 or 2 10-cent meters at the Market House with a 15-minute limit.
It's true, you can put a dime in.
I
To get 15
I think the intent is to, Peter, correct me, to change all of those to more of a consistent meter
Yes.
standardization.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because Vicky's gone.
Yeah, if folks don't have, if the players folks don't carry quarters, imagine how many have dimes only for a 15-minute in there. Those are, where they are at the Market House are underused for how full the Market House lots can be and used for basically the same regular 2-hour, 25, regular rate. Also, given that there's 2 15-minute free loading zones right outside the Market House, these 10 cent per 15 minutes is redundant, actually probably maybe even wasteful of 2 better used parking spaces for longer term parking.
I will say they were instituted in a good spirit. They were
Absolutely.
addressing an
Everything
area
is.
at the time.
So I was gonna say that it feels like we are, like, because it's not uniform, it feels like, oh, I pay more because I may not be very good at using an app, or I don't have the app, or do you know what I mean? Like, it feels kind of.
It ends up being about the same price.
Okay,
So once
that's what I was
you-
gonna ask.
With the processing
With the
fee?
processing fee, once you pay that, it ends up being like 40 cents for the hour if you use the app, I think, 45 or so.
Okay, I'm just,
So with-
right, like, so it'd be about the same, okay. I don't
I
wanna,
can't remember if it's 40 or 45.
I'm gonna do it right
I
now.
think it's 40, if I'm,
I just clicked.
yeah, no. Yeah. As long as it's close to the same price, I don't wanna, somebody who just is no good with technology.
45, if you have a wallet, it's 25 and 20.
Okay, all right. Does anybody have any other questions?
You might be more if you don't have.
All right, roll call.
An ordinance of the City of Meadville, Crawford County, Pennsylvania, amending Part 5 of the Meadville Municipal Code entitled Traffic Codes, specifically amending Article 521 entitled On-Street Parking and Article 525 entitled Off-Street Parking, amending the schedule rates, time limits, and hours of operation for metered off-street parking spaces in plazas, lots, ramps, decks, and garages owned or operated by the City of Meadville, and of on-street metered parking in public rights-of-ways, and providing for a general repealer, severability, recitals, and an effective date. McKnight? Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Kinder?
Aye. Can I have a motion for the second reading?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
McKnight?
Aye.
Roa?
Aye.
Vogel?
Aye.
Kinder?
Aye. Discussion walk works, active transportation.
All right, I'll take this over. The conversation, how it will go, if you don't mind, will depend in part on how many of you have this lovely 141-page document for you right now. Okay. We'll roll with it. So you will have reviewed it. It's been on the docket for a while. As you know, that we need to adopt this by resolution in June to fulfill the terms of the WalkWorks grant that we have been given by the Pennsylvania Downtown Center. It is a large document. You can hurt somebody with this. It's fine, don't be overwhelmed. I'll break it down right now so you can understand how this works. With me is Elliot Hare of Transportation Planning Design of Bridgeville, Pennsylvania. That's the firm that our WalkWorks grant is fully paying for, just to get that on the record. So he'll be my support on the technical matters of all this transportation stuff. All right, so even though this is a big plan that includes 60 actions, more than 60 actions, it's pretty comprehensive for all the ideas that we have gathered from our steering committee, the charrettes that we did last year at the library, our public surveys, things that we've gone through the county and Safe Streets for All Planning Commission, Environmental Advisory Committee. This is the gathering place. And it started with so much public comments, and we're respecting all of that in the projects that came out of it. Right. But that doesn't mean we're going to do all of this at once. Okay, so to break it down, if you had this in front of you, you would be turning to page 38 for the list of projects. These will be indexed, so you'll see exactly where in the rest of the plan you can find these projects. So we're just going to walk through this right now. Okay? Oh, sorry, that was not supposed to be a pump. Yeah, thanks for pointing that out. Okay. So let's see, on page 38, we're going to go to Randolph Street corridor. You might remember that we did an analysis of what for the value of road mileage and the usability of our city streets, what were the best priority corridors to elevate for attention to this plan. On page 38, Randolph Street corridor, activity number 1 says reduce posted speed limit to 25 miles per hour from 35 miles per hour. Okay. To do that, you go to page 65, where there is a more full explanation of the corridor, why 35 miles per hour is problematic for the characteristics of this corridor, a description of reducing it to 25 miles per hour, what the possible impacts that would be on that corridor, and why we are justified for doing so. And it's this long because that's not necessarily very simple. That's transportation is complicated. All right, so I'm going to ask Elliot to describe what, just even for this one activity, how speed limits are established in places like this, what it takes to change speed limits, and why we need to have some method, like deliberate method of doing so.
Good evening, Council. Again, I'm Elliot Hare with TPD, transportation engineer that has assisted Peter in the city on the development of the ATP. So again, I'll reiterate, Peter has done an incredible job preparing a very beefy document. This is a plan. Think of it as like a menu at the restaurant, but you're able to work through your initiatives, prioritize what's most important to the community, and start working at how can you fund it internally, or how do you have to grants via the state, county, etc. So a lot of times when we lay these plans out, we look at what are some low-hanging fruit that are low cost, if any. And one thing that we noticed when we came out and walked a lot of the city streets was there was lots of residential areas with 35-mile-an-hour posted speed limits. And I found that interesting, and I could even tell that on the speed limit signs, it looked like there had been an overlay over a 2 with a 3. So at some point in history, the speeds were changed.
You can just peel it off.
Well, so the good news, well,
Why does it cost $750?
We'll
get there.
Yeah, in essence,
Okay.
in essence, though, the great news is that the city has the authority via the vehicle code to reduce speed limits in residential areas. There's a bit of a definition, and I've given Peter a letter explaining that in detail. But you have the authority to set your speed limits at 25 miles an hour. Go out, have Public Works install new signs indicating 25 miles an hour in your residential areas. And so we, in our field work, had identified several of the corridors, again, that are city-owned streets. You have several spots that become state routes that are 35 miles an hour, those are areas where you would have to engage PennDOT to do a speed study to then determine what the 85th percentile speed. That part gets really complicated. Within the city's confines and authority, posting 25 mile an hour roadways, you really would need to go out, obviously do a one call on where your signposts might go, install them, purchase the signs, and then just amend your ordinance that you currently have that lists your roadways that have 25 mile an hour speeds. So the good news is that part's simple. Just took a little bit of digging through the vehicle code to determine what your authority is. So the plan will outline, and Peter's done a good job, several segments that are like immediate, great character fits for residential areas, 25 mile an hour speeds. Go out, implement those. And there you have by ordinance and posting the right to enforce lower speeds. That inherently makes it safer for people to walk on the sidewalks and slow your vehicles down. I take that as a low-hanging fruit win.
So I would amend that by also saying, even though this is low-hanging fruit and it sounds simple, the vehicle code requires that we can't just go do that. It requires that we have documentation on the record specifically establishing that we have confirmed these are the definition of a residence zone, which is a definition baked in Title 75 of state law. So we're on page 65 now, you go to page 132, and there is the letter from a transportation planning consultant that says, yes, these areas statutorily meet the state definition of residence area, and therefore you are justified to reducing these speed limits. Now, if we could just peel these numbers off, that would also be nice and simple. But the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices, which governs PennDOT's application.
I believe it's
of some-
complicated.
Okay,
I fully believe it.
thanks.
I trust you.
The point then being that this is one item in the plan of 60. Upon adoption of this plan, we're going to bring you the selection of the next best things to do. Right? I will personally bring up this as one of the like a prerequisite to the other things. And whereas this just has a summary of this that says possible cost is $750 based on a guess of what we have out there, you adopt the plan, we bring back a memo saying, this is the project. The project is we actually have 7 of these signs on Randolph Street. 2 of these signs do not meet the required retroreflectivity standards that we are required to have as signs. 3 of them have failing hardware already. The total cost of that is broken down to be, $527.37. This is where they are now. This is the before. This is where the signs should go afterwards. There might be some difficult thing that we discover along the way. We bring that project memo to you, and then you say, okay, $537.75 for this project, go. And we keep on going down the list. You don't have to say go to everything, but we'll bring up the next best thing, and you can say, you know what, I've read the rest of the list, and there's this other priority. And frankly, between you and me, I'm suspicious of setting a priority in hard form for this, because the next best priority could be the next sudden funding opportunity that comes up. This is a good example I'm bringing up to you, because lowering speed limits to 25 miles per hour was a low priority in 2013 in the old comprehensive plan. It was tucked in the back. So we've gone for, 12 years of increased risks due to higher speeds on residentials because we misprioritized things. So that's why I prefer to have this as a living document rather than say, put high out of reach things at the first and then say, okay, low-hanging fruit is low priority. When low-hanging fruit can be high priority, those are the things that we can control and come first. So that's why don't be surprised if you don't see just like an easy ranking 1 through 72.
Peter, could you correct my memory? It seems to me that in years past, where there were no posted speed limits in residential areas, there was a default of 25 miles an hour.
By statute, the residential areas are by default 25 miles per hour. Can you enforce that if there's no posting?
I don't believe so, no. That's why I would say for the low cost of the new sign, I would install it that way.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is, since it's a default already, do we have to go through the action of ordinances, or can we just use the default and post the sign?
I need to get,
Yeah.
sorry.
Your ordinance probably listed at 35 miles an hour, so we would need to
Amend the ordinance.
amend the ordinance to get it, either to don't address that particular street, at which point the default would kick in, or go straight to the 25. So if we're going through the process, we might as well list it in the 25 just to make it clear.
All right.
And
If I-
I was gonna say, when I was younger, it was, I swear we were told that it was, the default was 35. Do you know what I mean? Like, so there may be, do you know what I mean, like some misunderstanding of just,
I
you
can
know.
pull it up, I mean, it's
Yeah,
in
no,
the
no, no,
vehicle
it
code,
doesn't matter
but
to
there
me,
is a
I'm just
default, but-
thinking that, right, like if somebody doesn't know that or has been told this a whole bunch, right, the default is default, how can you, you know what I mean?
Right.
As I explained, actually, in this document,
Okay.
it's because the default in an urban district, this is my guess.
Yeah.
This is my best, I can't interview people from decades ago.
Sure.
But the default statutory speed limit for an urban district is 35 miles per hour. But just because this is the city of Meadville, doesn't mean that the city is entirely an urban district.
Right, and exactly, right, like my understanding may be different than your understanding and that's why it
Yeah.
needs to be posted, yeah, got
So
it.
now that we've revisited this, and we got public comment saying, please make Randolph Street back to 25 miles per hour.
Yeah.
Is kind of a hint that, okay. Yeah.
All these actions will require approval and action by council in form of an ordinance. Is that correct?
Not in form of an ordinance, really. I'm just hoping to get council's consensus to put staff effort into bringing these things to you. For instance, I know that there's a Commonwealth Financing Agency, DCED, multimodal grant opportunity that's coming up. We need to choose a project for that grant opportunity. And council eventually would have to have the resolution authorizing our submission for that project. So we'd like to work on that project application with the consensus of council. We can talk about our school zones now, because I think that our school zone re-permitting, and especially the North Street corridor, would be the next project to go for higher funding for it. So, I'll just bring this up as a second example, and then I think we can pause. I just want your agreement after that. This is the direction that we should go, to the point that we can adopt this plan, and that will roll with this method of implementation until we start getting things done.
I'll also add a key, I think, reward of the effort of doing these active transportation plans is that grant awarders look very favorably upon them, because it looks that a city has taken it upon themselves to do some due diligence, to have somebody at least go out, collect a bunch of public feedback, because that is a critical role to any of this. And to my role as a professional traffic engineer, to you guys being in city governance, and even having some of the basic concepts that we've prepared with some general ballparks on costing is very helpful to be able to, as you write your grant, you bring in an engineer to help give you more of a detailed estimate. This is not starting from scratch. We've done, a year's worth of work to get you to a really solid starting point. And we've, TPD, have done several of these and have seen projects take off even from like the draft stage. They've either gotten into somebody in the county's ear and they've started enacting from the concept to preliminary design, or the low-hanging fruit gets programmed into public works and they start doing it. So and these bring a lot of value to the community. And I think are a pretty cost-effective means from an engineering standpoint to get the conversation started and to help start the conversation on priority, and know that this is not all set in stone. This is a living document, I think similar to the earlier presentation, and it's kind of your menu.
Yeah.
You resolve on this to adopt it, that's pretty much between us. That's for purposes of the grant. If there's a thing that we need to change the week after, because something comes up, we can have that discussion and do that. with each of these items. We do the thing, I make a record of the project, I slip it into the plan, it becomes part of the history and a record of the decisions that we made. So if for some reason there's a project, we bring it to you, you say, go ahead, we bring back the project memo, you say, it'll cost this much, this is our best option for this, and you say, no, that's not worth it. Make a record saying, no, it's not worth it, shelve it, move on to the next thing. That way we'll have some continuity of
Right.
decision-making throughout history. That's the ideal. Would you be so kind as to describe school zone permitting?
Yes. So school zones and you currently have first and second district school zones have some form of flashing device now. The speed limit, those energized devices are permitted through PennDOT. While they might be on city streets, just like a traffic signal is owned and maintained by the city, but it has to be permitted through PennDOT, same thing goes for school zone flashers. So a school zone flasher, if you're installing new ones, replacing your old ones, if you want to install a brand new one, like out at the high school, middle school, where there currently are no school zone speed limiter flashers, you will need to go through sort of a design and permitting process with PennDOT. Those permits are pretty simple as far as permitting goes, but it's essentially a one-sheet permit plan. You have two currently on file for first district and second district elementary school. It would be a matter of essentially amending those. At least that's what I would propose to the department, is that an engineer would come in and amend your current plans without having to go through the rigmarole of survey and all that. So that's kind of to be said. So what Peter had us look at was first district and second district elementary schools currently determine is what's out in the field in compliance with their existing permits, and then make recommendations about improvements, because that equipment and the permit, they're about 15 years old now, which as far as signal equipment goes is kind of longer on the lifespan, and there's more modern equipment, etc. So that's the key point about your permitting. And then just like your traffic signals, if you install solar flashers or speed limit flashers that have hard power, it's the city's responsibility to maintain them, just like any of your other traffic signals.
We also have 3 parochial schools within the city limits.
Yes. Yes.
Will those be addressed also?
It's in the plan to see, okay, so there's Seton Catholic School, which does have some school zone posting. It has no flashers on it right now. It's not sure it's warranted to have flashers. Part of the establishment of a school district is also the existing conditions of the area. So that school zone would ostensibly, for Seton Catholic, begin somewhere around Liberty Street and then westbound to Park Avenue. Incidental to that is one of the recommendations of our plan to reduce the speed limit of Pine Street east of Liberty Street, which might have effect on a permit of that. But doing the permit and the engineering drawings for this was outside the budget of our plan, sorry, the concepts. It does cost 4 digits to get a traffic engineer to prepare a permit, get it through PennDOT, and all of that. So yes, there's investigate if Calvary Baptist, sorry, is it Calvary Baptist? Yeah, Calvary deserves a speed limit, given the reposting of Randolph Street down to 25 miles per hour and the conditions there. We weren't able to do that, but yeah, that's in the roster of the possible next things to do. Just can't do everything at once. What we did do is go visit First District Elementary and Second District Elementary as they were, during school let-in time, to personally see how these things were performing. So,
What's the third parochial school?
In Grace Methodist Church, isn't that creating landscapes?
No, they moved.
They
They have
moved?
they're out on Terrace Extension.
Okay.
I don't know if they're, I never know if that's in the city limits or not. I don't think that it is.
Yeah.
All right.
all right. So this is a different one. Again, just to show off the work that our transportation consultant did for us in preparing these concepts. So we address some decades-old complaints. North Street, the drag strip. As Elliot said, we do not have an established school zone permit for Meadville Area High School and Meadville Area Middle School, even though those are probably the most walked-to schools in the city. And the current traffic configuration that we have of temporary one-way closures, it's about time to question that again, because it can be very strange. And it also doesn't necessarily to have any traffic calming protection outside the times, the very limited times of school let in and school let out when the barricade is up. So we observed when we went out there, a whole ton of kids being let in one way, and then a doubling of traffic volume westbound because there was no traffic volume eastbound in that area because it was physically barricaded off. So that produced a really odd traffic pattern that at this point we're not assuming is the best traffic when you have hundreds of kids walking to school there. Regardless, North Street has some problems with speeding that is well known. So if you'd like to describe the concept.
Yeah, so again, so for the North Street corridor, as you get towards the middle school and the high school campus, before we get into ideas of raised crosswalks and all kinds of signs and pavement markings, again, this is sort of like you could call it a Cadillac version of traffic calming. You could scale this back to just the bare bones of enhanced pavement markings, so the crosswalk keys, the thicker crosswalk markings. There's a lot of crosswalks currently there from parking lots to school that are not marked or do not have proper signage. So a basic step would be get proper pavement markings, whether they be the crosswalk keys or even just the perpendicular lines with the proper pedestrian crossing signage. We think that North Street's a good candidate for installing a series of potential raised crossings. Again, you're now forcing people via a hard-scaped object to slow down as kids and faculty and staff are crossing over the campus. So we've kind of looked at the existing crossings from parking lots to the schools as you go from, I guess it'd be from west to east as options for raised crosswalks. I will note that, again, due to the scope of our work on this project, we haven't done any sort of actual detailed design as far as your raised crosswalks, but the main thing to consider there is potential impacts to stormwater, so how the water currently drains, and this could create, if not drained properly, or an allotment for stormwater that would be a new inlet, water pond. But anyway, regardless, it would be a series of raised crosswalks at your current crossings, and then just enhanced signage to really hammer home the fact that your kids and your staff are walking to and from. Like I said, you could scrap the idea at the beginning and not go the raised anything route, or no hard features, and stick to signage and pavement markings as a starting point. The other thing is that there's no speed school zone posted on North Street at all. And PennDOT's criteria, it's a pretty standard form. Really, it's just one kid has to be documented as walking to school to and from. So it's a pretty low threshold to be able to warrant the need for a 15-mile-an-hour school zone. Again, though, if you want to take it a few steps further and prioritize some locations, key crossings where you want to implement the raised crosswalks, it's I think a great option. We've kind of identified it on the plan, and we're working on a little bit more of a sharper estimate without doing any sort of preliminary engineering to get you a more narrow ballpark on the price, so that if you were to kind of go the Cadillac route, you have an idea for if you go for a numerous amount of grants, you're not totally out of the park, or you're staring at I'm between $500,000 and $100,000. That's a pretty wide range. And that's sort of the traffic calming recommendations that we have for the middle school, high school. I know that when I was out with Peter, we did observe what seems to be a long-standing circulation pattern that the school district uses. And while I did see it was unconventional, it definitely seems like it functions. The thing that I found just from a mere observer standpoint is that you're circulating traffic back on students crossing. And so if you want to eliminate points of conflict, it's worth reevaluating should that conversation want to be had at some point down the line. So yeah, that's traffic calming around middle school and the high school.
And by the way, especially to Jim, This one-way closure temporarily is written into our traffic code, so we'd have to change that by
I
ordinance.
encountered it yesterday morning.
Yeah.
So that's a thing that we have instituted, not the school district,
Probably
Likely-
codified with,
in partnership with
yes,
the
I would
district.
assume so, yes.
And that's probably how we would wanna approach.
Yes.
I would certainly agree with that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Would that area include the technical school, which, I don't know if that's in Westmead or still in the city?
Yeah, VOTEC at Thurston, no, this concept plan does not.
Because that's further, yeah, that's just outside of.
Okay.
Regardless, anybody who is likely walking to VOTEC as a student there is using this path. So again, this is just a concept.
The other item it's not shown on the concepts, but Peter and I have discussed, and I think you've even discussed with the police department, is the use of speed radar feedback signs, whether they be a sort of a temporary setup. We do a few municipal clients, and they'll do simple ones that they'll just mount on 4x4 posts. And those installations are, I think, they can run about $5,000 a piece, but it's a good way for the school district, or for the police department to get record speeds. They in and of themselves help deter speeding because there's just the inherent perception that my speed's being recorded. And so again, that's sort of, to me, it makes common sense to implement a couple of those on North Street, whether it be probably leaning towards the school versus actually in front of the school itself. And again, you could pilot it as a sort of a temporary setup or go a little more permanent route. But again, that's a relatively cost-effective traffic calming method. And it could help with the police department enforcement.
Yeah, 'cause we can't use radar,
Correct.
but can we use just radar posts, like?
No.
No, so that's gonna be more so for,
Later?
feedback and for actual collection.
Self.
So you'll constantly,
Some self-
you'll be recording, so that if you have a traffic engineer come back and say, hey, well, what are your current speeds along here? If you want to reevaluate, you can pull the data out of that. And then, yeah, the police can set up enforcement zones and monitor it that way, sort of more traditional means.
Sure.
Yep.
So this is your quick primer to the plan, the concepts in it. Again, this is just a start. It is an unbudgeted start. But what I'm asking for you tonight, because I have a month to tidy this up with editorial decisions and to satisfy Walkworks by presenting the first things, the first projects that we will attempt. Do you agree on this rolling method of projects?
I do.
Okay. Secondly, would you agree, for instance, on adopting the plan that specifies reducing speed limits as the first low-hanging fruit project to evaluate and bring forward to you for to try to implement?
I would, yeah, definitely.
And we can modify the plan as
we go.
we proceed.
Right.
Definitely, yep. And would you agree that we look further into the school zones as the more out of reach, but with partnerships, funding, grant sources, other,
Yes.
how do I put it? Longer range, big ticket projects.
Yeah.
So, okay. I'm not even gonna get into the trail stuff right now.
No.
I mean, I guess, right, well, so now this was it, so this is public now, right? It was, or we pass it and it's public?
You pass it, it's public. Right now it's
Pass
marked
public.
draft because there's
Right, this is
a lot of
discussion.
details.
Yeah.
Plus there's some confidential PennDOT, there's some
Okay.
information in there which PennDOT marks as confidential, except for only the use and viewing of those who are in the decision-making position in the transportation system, so we can't release that to the public.
Gotcha,
So-
okay, I asked because, we just had a presentation on the MCRC, so I'm just like, there's talks of sidewalks and walkability, right? And if we can share with partners so they can kind of map where they're already thinking. I think that came up for me in relation to like, yes, I think the school zones feel like a good priority, and that's gonna have to happen in partnership with the school districts. And if anyone else wants to partner and take on any of these pieces as part of something they're already working on.
Yeah, no doubt we will
Very nice.
we will have to figure out what share of funding support we can do for any of this.
Yeah, or like if stuff is relevant to CATA, or, I mean, just right.
So-
And that's all you needed was a consensus from us to move forward?
Yeah, I
Okay.
just need no disagreement. We'll go forward, I'll tidy up the plan with these things enumerated as, our special items to explore first, and then we'll start doing it.
Right on. Do you guys have any other questions before we move on?
I just have one maybe suggestion or like so it's, I recognize that it might not be 141 pages like in its final form. I imagine it's still gonna be dense, and I'm thinking about like sharing out and like the public knowing what we're working on, and I am wondering, maybe it's a thing that you don't worry about until after it's done, or maybe it's helpful to think about it in tandem, but like some sort of like, could we do a scorecard or a dashboard on the website, or even if we just post somewhere, like, these are the ones we're looking at right now, like, right, just like to give a little bit of direction to make it publicly digestible, I think, so that folks can, I don't know, maybe like then you dig into the plan and see, like, I care about this one, so I'm gonna show up and, or say something to council.
Yeah, from here, I get to rebuild an executive summary, for
Okay,
instance.
so maybe it is just the executives. It could just be that.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Peter. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Where are you coming from?
Okay.
Easy job.
All right,
Thank you.
ABC appointments, can I have a motion to approve? I'll read, Tim Groves for the Meadville Area Water Authority, Kim Lesher for the EAC, Dennis Frampton for the Redevelopment Authority, and Emil Spatafor for the Zoning Hearing Board, alternate.
I'll second.
Discussion?
Did you say 10 Brews?
Yeah.
We're still working on interviewing for the Rec Authority and Planning Commission. Is that right, Deborah?
So those are the two we still have open?
Yes.
Okay.
And the EAC spot.
And the EAC spot. So, all right, roll call.
McKnight,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Resolution, authorized signatures, support for the MCRC Main Street Matters designation. Can I have a motion?
Motion.
I'll second.
Discussion?
This is the resolution that Andy was talking about in his presentation earlier.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
No questions, glad it's happening. In particular, some of the stuff that even just came up tonight, parking, transportation plan, right? It's like, it is gonna be helpful to have like a partner and added capacity in the city to, reach out to people, to do some, to just do a lot of the work. I, had been looking at the notes from the town hall we had on parking, and, right, like, folks say stuff about parking angrily, and, but also, right, it was like, we need to do development first, and we need to, like, focus on improving downtown. Like, that should be the, and there's just, anyway, we've got limited capacity, so I'm really grateful that the capacity will be introduced to our city to do some of the things that the city can't do on its own, and to partner in ways that improve our town.
Yeah, one more listening ear, right? I think that's great. Can I, do you guys have any other questions? All right, roll call.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville, Pennsylvania, in support of the filing of a proposal by the Meadville Community Revitalization Corporation with the Department of Community and Economic Development, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, for Main Street Program designation. McKnight,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Resolution authorized license agreement.
Jane.
I'm sorry?
Jamie, before we do that, may I make
Sure.
a suggestion?
Sure.
Take a look at C and D. They're the identical
Right.
agreement, but they have two different dates. Could we make the dates uniform? One is May 8th to November 1st, the other one is June 1st to November 1st.
Are these things that they've
So
asked-
Julian's has already started, that's why it's dated May.
Right.
But next year, can we coordinate them? Okay.
I just, are these dates that they asked for, or are these dates that we're like, we're gonna do it in this window?
These are
Do you know
dates
what I
that
mean?
they've asked
Okay,
for,
so they may be different, but I do
DJ
understand.
York called and asked
Sure.
specifically about this
They
one.
already set up.
Yeah.
And it looks like Ron already signed his, so they've agreed to the June ones.
All right, so, can I have a motion for, Julian's?
Motion?
Second.
Wait. My bad. That's okay.
Okay, I apologize, go ahead.
That's okay. Discussion?
These are the same license agreements that you've signed in previous years, same fee, same insurance requirements. We have received both of those needed documents and payment from both entities. in fact.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, roll call.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing signatures on a license agreement for outdoor seating between the City of Meadville and Tail Horse Industries. McKnight,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Can I have a motion to authorize signature on the license agreement for outdoor seating for Meadville and Shippers Pub?
Motion. Second.
Discussion?
Same.
Roll call.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Meadville authorizing signatures on a license agreement for outdoor seating between the City of Meadville and Shippers Pub. McKnight,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye. Public comment on non-agenda items?
We actually have Darla Boca-Weimer. I would like to express my deepest gratitude for the staff of the City of Meadville, City Council, our firefighters, our policemen, and everyone who sent well wishes to myself on the passing of my husband. Tony was a very well-known man throughout Meadville, and the love and support that I have received has been overwhelming, but totally grateful for, and I just want to let everybody know that how wonderful it is to work for a place that not only are we work friends, we're work family, and I truly felt that over these last couple weeks, so thank you all, I appreciate it so much. So, that is all.
Thank you, Dara.
Thank you.
Public comment on non-agenda item? Or, I'm sorry, you got me.
No other.
I'm emotional here, Darla. Council member statements, Jim,
Polls close in 35 minutes.
right on. Gretchen is not here, but she did ask me to make sure that, let me just find it. I give a shout out to Jenny and Public Works for a great job they did for the city cleanup. We had 80 truckfuls by 8 a.m. and an additional 17 from the 5th Ward and the Hope community. And also a shout out to Peter, who helped unload trucks as well. So she said that was a great crew. So I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew what an awesome job was done and how successful cleanup day is, right? It's an awesome addition. All right. Larry?
Nothing.
Right on.
Grateful, thanks Andy for presenting, thanks folks for coming tonight. Peter, thanks for all your work. The active transportation plan is thorough, and I think that that's gonna be really, that will serve us well, and we'll have a lot of work done ahead of time. Grateful to Ian left, but EAC, right, the history of that, EAC got us the pre-planning grant for Walkworks, then we got the Walkworks grant to actually put this together, so hopefully it just kind of all sets us up for more improvements, more projects, more money into Meadville, all in the service of making people's lives better here.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, Autumn. Yeah, I want to thank you, Andy, you're doing great work. I think that, you know, it's one more pillar that is holding this town up, right? One more pillar that kind of fits into that puzzle piece that that helps us make Meadville a better place and work for more people and, you know, more entities to co-govern with. So I think it's a beautiful thing. Yeah, it was awesome. Although I didn't get to make it to the 2-year anniversary, I think that our ambulance service and our fire department is a wonderful shining example of what can come out of, you know, good governing and listening to people and co-governing, right? Like, so I think that is great. And I think Evan had a post about working with Vernon, right? Like, how awesome it is to have them in one building and working together and understanding that, you know, this place is bigger than just one person. So working in coordination and partnership to make people safe in our area is, I don't know about you, but that's what makes me feel very safe and very excited about a Meadville that works with our partners and our neighbors. Darla, I love you. I do, and my heart goes out to you, and I think that is a wonderful thing that Meadville has made you feel, right? And the city of Meadville has made you feel cared about and supported, because those, I think, are our values, and that is how we want to make everyone feel. And I just, I adore you, and I'm really, really happy I get to spend time with you. Is truly what it is. So with that, I'd like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
And a second? Second. Discussion? Roll call.
McKnight,
Aye.
Roa,
Aye.
Vogel,
Aye.
Kinder.
Aye.